Like,
Because
will we never escape the matrix because there's always going to be someone who's going to one-up you regardless how hard you try, right? Like,
no,
you're always bound by something if you're chasing materialistic things.
well, if we suppose that the metaphor is correct, right? And I to a certain degree agree with it because, based on my own understanding, but ultimately, you know, as long as you chase the world, you're never going to exit the matrix.
Yeah.
Very simple. If you're chasing after the world, you're never going to have the ability to exit what nowadays people are calling
Yep.
the matrix. That's fundamentally what it boils down to, right? Because, ultimately, well, how does Islam explain it? Well, all these material things and pretty much everything that's on the face of this earth is finite, right?
Mm-hmm.
كل من عليها fan. Everything is finite. وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. And it is only the countenance of your Lord which is infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, if you would like to attain any semblance of reality and something which is worth chasing after, then ultimately it's that relationship with God Almighty, right? But I think what you're after, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, and that is, well, not everyone's able to fully dedicate their lives to God Almighty, right? And ultimately, you still have to do a lot of the things that people in the world are doing, right? How do you keep up, and how do you, ensure that you're making progress and that progress is actually worthwhile?
Yep, exactly. Right? Like, how can young men sort of better themselves, or what understanding or mentality could they have so that they could do well for themselves?
Well, how about you look at it this way? How about you look at it in this way, that ultimately every experience that you have in your life is an experience with God.
Right.
Right? Everything matters. The issue we have today, right? People start dividing things up. They're like, you've got work, you've got life. Work-life balance, right? These are two separate things. There's no such thing. There's just life.
Yeah.
Life happens. Sometimes life is good. Sometimes it can get tough, right? Every single experience is a contribution to your relationship with God Almighty, right?
And whether you learned from it, whether you got close to God as
absolutely. And through every experience, ultimately what boils down to it is, what is your intention, right? Why are you doing something, right? So fundamentally, let's look at the lives of the companions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. When they would do trade and business, what was the objective? The objective was, well, fundamentally, if you want to live on this earth, you need to provide shelter, food, and clothing to yourself and to your family. Hence why they worked. They worked very hard. Some of them were very good businessmen. Now, naturally, those who were very good businessmen, they got really rich really fast. Not everyone's able to do that. Some are. But the objective wasn't to get really rich really fast. The objective was that I need to provide for myself and my family, right? And look, this idea that I need to have more control over my schedule, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's really good. If, ultimately, look, what is your intention? Let's look at it this way. If your intention is that I would like more control over my schedule, I do not want to work 9 to 5, right? And have no control over my schedule and eventually burn out because I don't have the energy to be able to put it into other things, right? If your intention is, well, I would like more control over my schedule, and well, at the moment I'm not able to have more control over my schedule, but I need to work towards it, right? So I'll work towards it. Eventually I'm going to get to a situation where I am fully in control of my schedule, and despite that, I have enough means for food, shelter, and clothing, and all of those things for my family. And honestly, we live in a good time.
Yeah.
Even if you were to just do that bare minimum, you would have even more than that anyway to be able to do other things, right? But that's not the point. The point is, if the intention is, if I have more time, right? So if I have more time and I have control over my schedule, then that opens up a world for me where I'm able to give more time to my family and my children. I'm able to experience and enjoy, and here is a very important point, I'm able to experience and enjoy the blessing of Allah upon me,
Mm-hmm.
which naturally will result in gratitude, right?
There we are.
If I have more control over my schedule and I'm able to actually stick to a workout routine which will result in a good health and a strong body and which will keep me at bay from depression and anxiety.
And also help you physically pray longer, which helps you better your relationship with God.
Exactly. If I get myself in a position in life where I'm able to then do the things that are meaningful, right? To really experience life to the absolute fullest as much as I can, because every experience is an experience with God.
Yeah.
And it's an experience which makes me grateful of God's blessings upon me and pushes me further towards coming closer to God and changing my behavior and carefully curating it according to the attributes of God, then yeah, why can't you, particularly live in this world and have both?
Yeah.
Right?
So it's not just one or the other. You're either stuck in the matrix, you never get out, and you die a
No.
meaningless death. We can live both. As long as we
Yeah.
switch the mentality that, first of all, you're not doing this with the intention of getting rich. You're doing it to fulfill a need, and that need fulfills a right or obligation to God.
Yeah, ultimately think about it this way, right? If your objective is the fast car and the house and all those things, and then you decide to find and employ all these different ways in which you can make money very quickly, very fast, etc., how have you really exited what you call the matrix? You've just created another one.
Yeah, because one market crash means half your income wiped out, or there's so many such instances.
There's that, but then ultimately, right? I mean, if you're looking at in the long run and in terms of finding meaning in your life and everything, right? If this is all you're after, right? Then how have you really, if you think about it, how have you really exited anything? You've just you just went from one extreme to another, right? Right. Ultimately, the only way you can really come out of this, what we call the matrix, I guess, or this programming or this thing where you're a number in a computer and this machine that the modern world has created, is, well, the only way is you turn to God.